everyone, I'm Rachel Bateman, and today's video I want to talk about the major differences between novels and screenplays. And by that I don't really mean like the nitty-gritty formatting differences. We'll go over that a lot in my video about formatting screenplays to help you know how to properly format yours. But this is more like mindset and big picture differences between novels and screenplays to help you really get in the right mind and point of view to write a screenplay and know what your job as a screenwriter is. So the first big difference is that a novel is a finished product. Now obviously there's a lot that happens between finishing your first draft and having a finished book that you can hold in your hand. But with a novel, your words, they make the full product that someone could pick up, buy, and read. That is it. With a screenplay, your words are a blueprint for a future finished product. They are just a guide for actors, directors, DPs, the whole cast and crew to use to make the end product. Very few people are just going to pick up and read screenplays for fun. I do that because I learn a lot from them, but they aren't really a finished product. Only the biggest, most popular, most mind-blowing screenplays are ever bound and sold the way a novel is. They are a blueprint. So having that in mind will really help you as you are writing to be able to pull back when you're wanting to add more description and more detail and be more verbose, to remember that this is just the guide and someone else is creating the final product. And that really ties right into the second difference, which is that a screenplay is much more strict in their format. Now I said I wasn't going to go into format a lot in this video, and I'm not going to. There's a whole future video about that. But a screenplay is a lot more strict in how you lay things out on the page. And that is because it's a blueprint. It's not because Hollywood gatekeepers are just trying to make it hard for new writers and just throw up roadblocks and make it impossible to get into the industry, or whatever excuse you might be coming up with. It is laid out very, very specifically because every person who picks up that script and reads it with the intent of working on that film needs to be on the same page and have the same understanding of what they are going to do. Having very strict formatting means that a director or a producer could pick up your script and flip through it without fully reading it yet and get an understanding right then of if you are an experienced screenwriter, if you know what you're doing, what kind of division we have between action and dialogue. Is it going to be a super, super verbose dialogue-y movie like Aaron Sorkin likes to write? Or is it going to be a more sparse J.J. Abrams action flick? Really, that all comes down to just the formatting. They could figure that all out flipping through a screenplay if it is properly formatted. Because there's a lot more white space on a screenplay, it's really easy to see that division between dialogue and action. And you know, a lot of producers, when they pick up a script from an unknown author, an unknown screenwriter, they're going to just flip right through it and see if there is a proper proportion of black to white on the page. And that seems really silly, like, oh, you're just going to give it a flip and not even read it and just decide if I'm good or not. But doing that right up front really will let them know right away if this person knows what they're doing or not. And it's a way that they weed out the hacks, the people who don't want to learn or don't care to learn or think they are better than learning how to properly do it. Because, again, it's just a blueprint, it's a lot easier to let go of the bit of oppression you feel when you have to do something so strictly formatted like that, because you understand why you're doing it that way. You understand that it's okay, I have to do it this way because these other people who are going to be taking my script to make a movie with, they need it that way so they know what to do. The third big difference between novels and screenplays is the 5 senses versus 2. In a novel, we play with all 5 senses. We describe sights, sounds, tastes, feel, smells. We get rich, lush descriptions of all of that to really help make a full, robust world that the reader can immerse themselves in. In a screenplay, you have what you can see and what you can hear. That is it. You are only writing what will be seen on the screen, what people are saying, and other sounds that might be pertinent. That is what you have to work with. You cannot describe smells. You cannot describe the way something feels. You cannot describe tastes. The best you can do on that is have a character react to those. So really remembering that all you have to work with in a screenplay is what you see and what you hear will help you be able to really tighten the reins and hone it in on your story and your characters' reactions and the way your characters interact with one another. The fourth big difference between screenplays and novels, and this is probably both the most abstract difference and the most important difference, is that in a novel, the story unfolds from the inside out. It's built up on the emotions and conflicts of the characters, and it brings to life a world in the reader's imagination. In a screenplay, the story comes from the outside in. You're not writing something that the end reader, the end user, is going to pick up and immerse themselves in and build up in their imagination through your words. You are writing something that actors and directors and cast and crew, they are going to internalize and put on screen to create a more tangible product for the end viewer to see. Like I said, that's kind of an abstract principle, but once you really grasp it, it helps you understand just like that strong intrinsic difference between writing for the screen and writing a novel. Finally, the fifth big difference between writing screenplays and writing novels is budget and setting concerns. Now, if you're just learning to write a screenplay and you have no intention of ever trying to do anything with it, you're learning to write it because you want to learn to be a stronger novel writer, and novels are your heart, you don't really have to be concerned about this. But if you have any kind of desire or dream of writing a screenplay to sell, or even writing books that are more likely to be optioned for film, budget and setting concerns are huge. Because when you write a novel, you could write anything you want. It could take place on a different planet. It could be this huge fantasy kingdom. There can be wars. There can be explosions. There can be flying cars. There can be flying horses. There could be anything you want. But on a screenplay, assuming you want it to be on the screen at some point, you have to consider how much that's going to cost to produce. And something that goes completely over the top with all these big, huge effects and special worlds and amazing things, that's going to cost more to produce always than something with a more normal setting, with fewer settings, with fewer speaking characters. It's something to consider if you want your screenplay to ever make it to screen, or if you want to up your odds of being able to option your title to Hollywood. More speaking characters means paying out more. More settings means paying out more. Bigger, grander settings means paying out more. Huge special effects needs means paying out more. There's a reason a lot of horror movies have small casts and take place in, if not a single location, a very limited number of locations. It's because it can be made very cheaply that way. Now, I'm not saying you have to super change your idea and cheap it down and just, you have to, budget's king and that's all you can consider. If you have a story to tell your story. But if you have dreams of seeing your story on screen, keep it in the back of your mind that things cost money, and the more they cost, the lower your odds of actually making it to the big screen. So it's just something to have in the back of your mind. In a novel, you don't have to consider that at all unless you are really, really hoping to be able to option your novel. That is a consideration to take. But in general, you could write anything you want in a novel. You can make up worlds and it'd be amazing. In a screenplay, assuming you want to produce it someday, you do need to take into consideration the budget when you are writing. This is something I see when I read scripts from unsigned and unsold screenwriters. I read a lot of horror scripts, and oftentimes I'll read slasher scripts that have 30 characters who all speak. Many of them barely speak at all, but they are speaking characters, and 18 different locations. And I always in my feedback come back and say, this is great, but you need to cut your characters in half and your locations down to 2 or 3. And anytime there's pushback, I remind them, horror is a low budget situation, and selling a slasher from an unknown writer when you need to have a much higher budget is not going to happen. So taking it back and recognizing that having budget in mind while you're writing helps up your odds of producing is a big deal for screenplays. Now, again, I want to reiterate that most of you watching are novelists, and if you're trying to write a screenplay, many of you are doing it just to learn stronger, more tight writing, so that's not really a consideration, but it is something to keep in the back of your mind if you have dreams of seeing your work on the screen someday. Okay, so that is it for me today. Those are my biggest differences between screenplays and novels. I hope you learned something today. If you can think of any other differences that really stand out to you between screenplays and novels, drop them down in the comments. Also, if you have any questions, please always feel free to comment and I will answer them as soon as I see them. I am Rachel Bateman. I will see you back here next time.